Coming up, a ton of goals across the league for a very fun night in hockey on Tuesday. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NHL, local experts on all of the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NHL on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. We have all of our NHL hosts here. They are ready to recap all of the games for you from last night across the NHL. No scoring in regulation for the Flyers and Rangers, but New York got painfully close a couple of different times before things went to OT. New York finally broke through and won the game in overtime. And the hosts with Locked On Flyers and Rangers tell you everything you need to know from the Garden.
The Flyers got really lucky with the New York Rangers hitting the post 4 times in regulation, and Carter Hart made some incredible saves to keep the Flyers in it until less than a minute left in overtime when Chris Kreider got sprung to score the only goal of the game. Hi, I'm Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers, here with your quick reaction to the Flyers' 1-0 overtime loss to the New York Rangers. I think the Flyers wanted to keep it simple, and that's a good strategy in general, but the Rangers were on the attack for most of the game. You have to win all of those battles in the offensive zone every time, and the Flyers just weren't doing that as much as they have in previous games this season. The Rangers just dominated in possession throughout this game, and especially in shot attempts. They were up on the Flyers 33-8 in the second period alone. Kevin Hayes did have a couple really good chances for the Flyers late in the third and once in overtime as well, but Igor Shesterkin came up big every single time for the Rangers when he needed to. For more on this game and the Flyers all season long, tune into the Locked On Flyers podcast wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube.
The Rangers hit the post 4 times, and they do not score, at least until there was less than a minute remaining in overtime. Chris Kreider coming up clutch to give the Rangers a big 1-0 win against the Philadelphia Flyers. What is going on, everybody? This is John Check with Locked On New York Rangers. And as I just said, Chris Kreider coming up money in the overtime period. It had the potential to be a very frustrating loss if you're a fan of the New York Rangers, given the fact that, once again, the Rangers hit the post 4 times in regulation, basically just completely dominated this game, and turned out to be quite the clinic put on by Carter Hart, and Igor Shesterkin had a fantastic night as well. But one of those wins where, I think when it's over, if you're a Ranger fan, you're just kind of relieved more than anything else. Once again, Chris Kreider coming up clutch in the overtime period after Igor Shesterkin came up clutch by robbing Kevin Hayes at the end of regulation. But we're going to talk about all this on the next episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Do not miss it.
The Ottawa Senators blew a lead in the third period and ended up losing on the road to the Lightning last night. Locked On Senators explains that late game collapse.
The Ottawa Senators losing streak continues and now slides to 3 straight games, and their record falls below 500 to 4-5. I'm Brandon Pillar of the Locked On Senators podcast, and it's a 4-3 loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning in another game where Ottawa gets heavily outshot. Anton Forsberg has had his work cut out for him with 92 shots in the last games, both resulting in losses. Now, the Senators, they spent most of this game on the penalty kill. I mean, the penalties being called were left, right, and center, including a game misconduct and a 5-minute major for Dylan Gambrell, who's playing his first game of the season and scores a goal and then leaves the game. The Senators tried everything they could to hold on to this one, but ultimately they fall to the Lightning. We'll have more about this on the postcast and on tomorrow's episode of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
The Golden Knights ended up tying the game in the third period after a rally, and they won it in overtime against the Capitals. The hosts at both Locked On Golden Knights and Capitals have how Vegas sent the fans in Washington home disappointed.
The Vegas Golden Knights win 3-2 in overtime against the Washington Capitals. Hey folks, Chris Golick, Locked On Vegas Golden Knights here. All smiles, all excitement after what was a rather pedestrian game. VGK didn't seem to have a lot of high danger chances. They just kind of hung around. The goals were scored by Eichel, Carrier, and of course Shea Theodore in overtime. What a way to start the road trip and to continue their Yahtzee 5-game winning streak. Exciting start to the 22-23 Season 6 campaign. Let's see if the boys can keep it going Thursday night as they continue their road trip. For everything Vegas Golden Knights, please check out Locked On Vegas Golden Knights, your team every day.
The Washington Capitals lose to the Vegas Golden Knights in overtime by a score of 3-2. Hi, this is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals. The Capitals lose in overtime as Shea Theodore gets the game winner. It was a rough loss for Washington, who had the lead with 6 minutes left in regulation. They also lose a Beck Malenstein in an injury as well. And the injuries are really kind of starting to stack up for the Capitals. They really can't afford to be missing any other players. His exit comes after a huge sliding block in the defensive zone against the Golden Knights. Lindgren played rather well overall, making 28 saves on 31 shots. The Caps hope to get back into the win column Thursday as they take on the Red Wings. Keep it locked on to Locked On Capitals, and I will keep you updated on all the news on your Washington Capitals. Locked On Capitals, your team every day.
Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by Simply Safe. It is so important for you and your family to feel safe in your home, and Simply Safe does a great job of that. They've helped over 4 million people over the last decade feel safe when they are at home. They have a 24/7 professional monitoring system. It allows agents to dispatch police or fire emergency responders to your house in an emergency if necessary. And of course, you can customize the perfect system for your home in just a couple of minutes at simplysafe.com/lockedonnhl. You can save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month for free as well. You just have to visit simplysafe.com/lockedonnhl to learn more. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game NHL. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. New York Islanders never trailed against the Blackhawks in Chicago yesterday, but our Locked On Islanders host says that doesn't mean it was that easy to watch for New York fans.
It wasn't a work of art, but the Islanders will take the 2 points. Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders here. The Islanders with a gritty but not pretty 3-1 win over the Chicago Blackhawks. We knew what kind of game this was going to be early on. Casey Cizikas ejected from the game, a 5-minute major for goaltender interference and a game misconduct. The Islanders mixing and matching their lines after that, but played a gritty game and got just enough offense, and then the empty net goal at the end. So the Islanders win it 3-1. Ilya Sorokin outstanding, and the Islanders, even though they weren't able to really open things up, they were able to shut down the Blackhawks just enough, and when they needed it, got the timely goals to end up with the victory. 4 straight wins for the Islanders, and regardless of how artistic it is, that's a good sign. For more, listen to and watch the Locked On Islanders podcast with me, Gil Martin, wherever you get podcasts.
The Wild were able to overcome some more injury struggles to beat the
Well, the injuries are starting to mount, but the Wild have plenty of youngsters ready to step in and help out. Hey everybody, Seth Sopal, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, recapping a 4-1 win for the Minnesota Wild over the Montreal Canadiens. A little bit of a choppy start to say the least, but the Wilds get 3 second-period goals thanks to Mason Shaw and then Kirill Kaprizov ×2. Marco Rossi nearly had his first NHL goal, but he does settle for his first career NHL assist, and the Wilds get an empty net goal from Matt Boldy to seal it. Marc-Andre Fleury, great once again, 34 out of 35, but the Wild lose Brandon Duhaime due to injury. They are now down Ryan Hartman, Marcus Foligno, Brandon Duhaime, and Jordan Greenway. So we're going to probably see some bodies from Iowa called up to help out, depending on how long those guys are out of the lineup. All in all, a good win for the Wilds. We'll see if they do it again Thursday. For more on the Wild, make sure you're following Locked On Wild wherever you listen to your podcasts.
The Boston Bruins went down 3 goals to the Pittsburgh Penguins in the second period, but did not give. Boston forced overtime, able to steal a win on the road. Even Locked On Bruins can't believe that happened in Pittsburgh.
I honestly can't really believe that just happened. Down 5-2 in the third period to the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Boston Bruins scored 4 straight goals, including the Hampus Lindholm overtime winner, to improve their record to 9-1. This is Ian McLaren, host of Locked On Boston Bruins, and the Bruins indeed looked set to earn their second loss of the year on the road against Pittsburgh, but they mounted this incredible comeback, Hampus Lindholm getting the assists on the 3 goals that got Bruins tied with Pittsburgh, and then added the overtime winner for good measure. The bad news in this one, Jeremy Swayman was injured. Linus Ullmark had to come back in after getting yanked, and he did earn the win. The Bruins now 9-1 after this comeback. Get on the wagon.
On a day where we saw 8 different teams score at least 5 goals, the Oilers bested them all with 7 to take down the Predators. Locked On Predators and Oilers have another high-scoring recap for you from Tuesday.
Well, the Nashville Predators might be in a little bit of trouble, folks. Nick Morgan here from the Locked On Predators podcast. Predators losing 7-4 to the Edmonton Oilers, and it became clear right away the Preds just didn't belong in the same arena as the Oilers tonight. Yeah, the Predators have now lost 7 of their 8 games since coming back from Prague, and there is a lot wrong with this roster, and it's getting to the point where you kind of have to start to wonder, is this really just a slump, or is there something wrong with the foundation of this team? They just don't look like they can keep up with these faster teams that are atop the NHL's Western Conference right now. And they're running out of time to get that fixed. Every line combination switch, every line shakeup just feels like duct tape on the side of the Titanic right now. And John Hines, love him, love what he's done for the team so far, but he's running out of time to get this ship headed in the right direction.
Evander Kane with his first hat trick on the season as the Edmonton Oilers improved to 7-3 on the season. Hi, I'm Brett Holden from Locked On Oilers, and the Oilers keep rolling. 5 in a row for Edmonton as they keep winning. Connor McDavid with 4 points against the Predators, 2 goals, 2 assists for the captain, as Leon Draisaitl as well leading the charge for the Oilers. 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points on the night, as Leon Draisaitl has 18 goals in the last 9 games against the Nashville Predators. The Edmonton Oilers are back in action on Thursday against the New Jersey Devils on home ice at Rogers Place.
The New Jersey Devils were able to jump out to an early lead, and they never looked back on Tuesday against the Vancouver Canucks. Our Locked On Devils host has a recap on that road win.
What's up? This is Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils, and here is my post-game reaction. So, the New Jersey Devils were able to come out on the winning end once again against the Vancouver Canucks by a score of 5-2. This win was much needed for the New Jersey Devils because early on in the day, the fan base received some not so good news. It was revealed that Andre Palat recently got groin surgery, so he's going to be sidelined for a significant amount of time. But once again, the New Jersey Devils haven't skipped a beat. They are now on a 4-game win streak, and they have won 7 of their last 8. This was a overall great effort for our bottom 6 because the third line in the last matchup against the Columbus Blue Jackets was pretty much a non-factor. Dawson Mercer and Yegor Sharangovich were both able to rack up a goal. Michael McLeod was able to get a goal on the 4th line, so the BMW line of Bastian, Wood, and McLeod once again just providing that energy. And speaking of Miles Wood, he got into a fight, and that really shifted the energy for the New Jersey Devils because they came out a little lethargic, and it was one of their slowest starts to the season. Despite that, they were able to end period number 1 2-0, and they just didn't look back. So once again, New Jersey Devils continue to win, and now there's going to be a true test on this Canadian road trip as they face the Edmonton Oilers in a couple days, and then the Calgary Flames twice in a row.
That's all for today on Locked On Game to Game NHL. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you go and subscribe to Locked On NHL and, of course, your team's Locked On podcast as well on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.